Hello, my beautiful light beings. Welcome back to the Magic Exists podcast with Dani Margeaux. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Cassandra DeAnn. She is a certified human design reader, Gene Keys guide, Akashic Records reader, and certified Galactic astrologer. Through her work, Cassandra guides others to break away from societal programming and reconnect with their true essence. She shares her story in hopes of empowering others to live unapologetically as who they are designed to be. Welcome, Cassandra.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Dani. Thank you for having me.
Yay! Okay, so the first question I'd like to ask all my guests is, what is your strongest clair and how does that represent in your daily life and in your work?
Oh, that's a good place to start already. My goodness. So my strongest clair is clairaudience, which has been an interesting journey. I believe intuition is like a muscle that we sort of exercise, and how that's related in my life has, at first, the muscle was like really weak. And I would get like one word, and then within like a year, just like a full on voice came to me. So I know that people talk about that. You've heard that inner dialogue conversation, like the chatter in your mind. Well, I don't have that. Mine is silent. So when my clairaudient gifts started coming online, it was like, where is that coming from? And it's funny because sometimes I forget that not everybody, that's everybody's gift or they experience that way. So I'll be in conversation saying, well, yeah, they said blah, blah, blah. Like it's just a friend, and people have to remember, because people will be like, who are they?
Oh my gosh, I do that. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, so I have to like take a step back and like, oh, okay. So it's been interesting because it is kind of I do have a very strong intuitive muscle, and it is on like all the time. Like it will literally even sometimes stop me in my day, whether I'm grocery shopping, it doesn't matter. But yes, I would say clairaudient is my strongest.
That's wild that you didn't have that inner monologue growing up. And then when you activated your gifts, that's when like that inner narrative, that inner voice came through. So you would say it's like your own voice, right? The clairaudience, like that message, or would you feel like it's other beings?
Yeah, it's definitely like third party talking, not like third party's wrong word, but like, for example, when it first kicked on, it was like, well, hello, Cassandra. And I was like, am I losing my mind? Like, because it doesn't, and it'll correct me, but I know it as my guides. And I've also, because I connect and channel to so many different guides, I can tell the energy frequency where I can get to where I know when it's like my higher self versus, a particular galactic star race or, an angelic guide. I can feel the difference of my guides when they come through. So, yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And this episode, as you are an Akashic astrologer and all the things, I want to make this episode about cosmic, galactic, and all the, alien
Woohoo.
things. And so the first question I want to ask you is about starseeds.
Okay.
Like, what are starseeds? Why are they reincarnating on this planet? And like, what is your view from, I guess, an astrology and Akashic Records standpoint?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So, as far as the term starseed, I think it's great as a form of an identifier for people to kind of pull people in. But how I view it, I have a little bit of a different perspective of that, because a lot of times the language around star seeds these are this select group of people that, kind of came, and they came from the stars, and they're star seeds. But when we look really at take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But the theory is that if we look back to the beginning of all time, we look at source intelligence, and source intelligence had this thought of, I wonder what it would be like to know myself. within that, it fragmented. And the first larger fragmentations were larger group consciousness. Now, keeping in mind, no stars are mentioned to this point. So there are different soul origins, such as I am a blueprinter. I know from reading for you, you are a blue ray, which is the expression of the archangelic realm of Archangel Michael. Once again, not a star. But then as the process went on and consciousness began to experience itself, we fragmented into smaller pieces, ultimately to the I expression, the physical incarnation, and then the star seeds. So also, I do believe that for the majority, when we look at the incarnation process, really Earth, the planet Earth is the baby. You know what I mean? So more than not, we all are star seeds in that sense. So it's really not a select few. That said, we all are consciousness experiencing itself. Therefore, we vibrate at very different levels. So there are different expressions that some races will, galactic races will resonate more, with some others. I think a popular one's the Pleiadians. Everybody knows about the Pleiadians. It's like, oh yeah, they're my peeps. You know what I mean? Not me personally, but a lot of people, so, so I like the term starseed in the sense of it's like, it feels like the juicy carrot that's like pulls, because I'll ask a lot of times in the work I do, how comfortable are you with the term starseed? Why? Because it's a basic beginning step that a lot of people can have heard enough about it versus like, how much do you know about your galactic, star races and the many planets you incarnated on, or possibly start before there was no incarnation at all? That might be a little overwhelming.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So much beautiful information and I want to talk about. So I want to go over a couple of like maybe the main star races or races beyond that. Some information. Like I read a lot of people there, like a lot of the people I feel like that came to me, like the main ones, I guess, right, are like Lyra, Orion, Andromeda, Venus, a couple of those. And then I know you described, I kind of want to go into after like our purposes, right? Because like you said, you're a blueprinter. Whoa, what does that mean? Like, and that's beyond reincarnation of like a planet consciousness. And I am a Blu-ray, which is like literally fragmented right after source consciousness. Like, what does that mean? Yeah, I'm like just so excited about this.
Love it. Love it. So I'll try to keep this short as possible without having it like a galactic history lesson. There are no questions at the end, I promise. So basically, when we, as I mentioned, came down to that physical incarnation process, we started with the Lyrans. So they were the first physical incarnated beings, and there were different genetic strands. So keeping it simple so we could cover all of the other fun ones, we'll just say that I look at this, I just love sometimes the synchronicities of things, because really, if you think of the beginning, like, and you think of the spark, you're thinking of really what's a masculine expression. It's like this new energy that's like, oh my gosh, I want to explore. I want to like get out. I want to like, oh, I want to, so the Lyran energy tends to have a lot of that masculine, leadership, courageous, things we might even associate it with like the zodiac Aries, the beginning energy, because you have to have that spark in the beginning to kind of push through it. That's why Aries starts the zodiac year, because why? When we're farming or whatever they did, you gotta have some ambition behind that. So the Lyrans, these are all characteristics that are associated with that. Now, the beautiful thing is that understanding there's no right or wrong, and that we are simply consciousness exploring itself. It's natural that there came a time in which, with the Lyrans, there formed a group of people that were like, I don't really want to go out and be like the space explorer. And I'm kind of more cozy at home. And how beautiful is this planet we're on? And I want to connect to it. And the yin expression, the feminine expression came to, like, out of that masculine. So these were Lyran starseeds that started to embody more spiritual practices, holistic ways of life. Like they would be the yogis of like today, and so this race this group of Lyran beings went to the star Vega and became the vegans. So Vegans. And so their expression was very spiritual, and more yin of the two. And so those are two that are important to the beginning of things. As far as Orion, now there's a lot of expressions there. And I'll be honest, I can't even summarize an Orion race, because really, and there's so many layers I could go into with this, but really Orion was like the New York City of like the galaxy. Like you had everything. Like the Montuckans, were Orions, the Greys, the Dracolians, reptilians, all of these races were all like connected to the Orion. And that's because there was a super cool portal, the Orion Nebula, that was easy access for galactic travel. So we'll leave that one there.
I love that, like all these beautiful, races that you are kind of talking about. What first led me onto this was a reading, an Akashic reading from this beautiful soul. Her name was Camila, and it was like maybe 2 years ago. And she was telling me about all these past lives and like Lyra and Mintaka and Sirius. And it was really interesting because when I went into the records, I was able to see like the reason why they're showing me this specific past life now is because of something I'm working through right now in relation to the karma in that past life.
Yes.
And for me, 2 years ago, that was my throat. And as you can see now, starting this podcast, it has kind of come full circle where I am really in that embodiment of like that full expression and authenticity and like really speaking my truth and really diligently working to open that after that reading. And I think it's so beautiful that there are people like you who are so tapped into that energy and has so much wisdom to like share. A lot of us, like when I'll pull up someone's, past lives, I'm like, oh, you were on this planet and this planet and this planet. And there's like you said about the word starseed, right? It's oftentimes like we feel like it's like, oh, you're from this one planet, like Pleiades. But actually, like I've been reincarnated on like maybe 200 plus planets and some that we don't even know of. And I got this download recently where I am like one of the people who is meant to bring forward this like galactic wisdom into this planet, because people on Earth, like you said, we're the babies. We're meant to know this wisdom. We're meant to know this information. And how else other than honestly through the Akashic records, through the divine channels, through this like beautiful space. And for anyone to, let's talk about the Pleiades a little, actually, because we did mention that. Like, I am not connected with them as well. I think I have had like maybe visited that planet, but one of my best friends channels directly from them a lot, and it's like I feel like they're the ones that are like mainly here, I think, to help Earth guide us as like light workers.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why I think especially now we're hearing so much about the Pleiadians is really when you go back to, once again, like the full history of, the human DNA, the evolution, really Pleiadians are connected to our genetics very strongly. I believe even they have pieces of our genetics, if I'm remembering correctly, in their makeup. So therefore, really, they're kind of like our cousins. So they are very much invested. And plus the Pleiadians are, yes, you could say they're very advanced or, scientific, but they're also very loving and kind. And they were like the people that part of one of the lessons they've had to learn is like, you can't do the work for somebody else. You have to give that space. You show up authentically, but understand you can't save everybody. You can't do the work for them. So there's a lot of wonderful lessons that can come from the Pleiadians. But what is so funny, I don't remember all of them, but there was a point in reading for my clients, I started to notice that most of them were having one Pleiadian connection, and it was often associated or connected to the 11th house in astrology, which is the community. So that was interesting because it's like, we've all kind of in our galactic travels and incarnations, we've kind of contracted or worked with the Pleiadians to this important time. Cetus constellation is another one. Nihal is another group, and Tau Ceti. These all are races that are very much invested in kind of what you could say the starseed. I've heard starseed envoy program, or the aspect of basically having higher vibrational conscious beings incarnate into physical vessels, and quite honestly helping them navigate that, because that's a whole nother conversation. Because when you're at a certain frequency, there are very real adjustments to the human vessel that need to take place to hold the higher frequency. So yeah, Pleiadians are definitely coming up a lot to help us with that transition.
I'm curious. Two things came up, but the first one, when you said you are resonating, your soul, your essence is resonating at such a high frequency, and when then you come down to earth, which we're in like the third and fourth dimension, to fit that energy into your body can be very challenging. And I know there's different like star planets that like struggle more than others. I have this like intuitive feeling that like the oversoul fragments into several different fragments, and that becomes like maybe a part of my expression of who I am now is part of that oversoul, because the whole soul could not fit into the expression of like Dani Margeaux.
Yeah. So that is a theory or something I've heard of. I'll be honest, I haven't felt personally led to go down that. I do know it resonates for me that we are multidimensional in the sense of that we are all experiencing consciousness through different dimensions of space and time. So that, I don't know if that's exactly and I know it's not the same as what you're saying, I feel like, but I don't know if it could be in the same neighborhood. That is a good question. I think that I don't really have an opinion one way or another on that, but I do think it's possible to, through the Akashic, connect to future selves and different dimensions, and, just so in a sense, that's all consciousness, having different experiences in different vessels.
Yeah, I love that. It's always like my human mind is always trying to conceptualize, right? Like,
Yeah.
how am I expressing consciously through all these dimensions and all these past lives? Because time doesn't actually exist beyond, this dimension. And like, actually, that past life that I saw in Lyra is actually happening right now because I'm seeing it. But then,
Yeah.
how does that happen when I'm here right now, eating
Right.
like my lunch or doing this podcast? And
Ooh,
a
yeah.
question, yeah, for you. So, like, there's a reason we're all coming on Earth. There's a reason there's a lot of us here on Earth right now. And I just saw someone posted on Instagram, like, the chances that you were born are literally like 0.0000000025. Like, there was a contract obviously in place for us to come here, to lower our vibration, to have that veil of forgetting. And you read me a couple weeks ago, and it was so amazing. I was like so blown away to incorporate the Akashic and the astrology. But you mentioned something about the archetypes, and I kind of want you to like go into that and how that really serves our purpose here, because oftentimes, honestly, like 5 years ago, before I got into this world, I was looking for my purpose, which I affiliated directly with the corporate world. Like, I am a real estate agent, or I am this like hearing aid dispenser. That's my identity and that's my purpose. But then now I'm realizing it's actually like your purpose is to like be your expression and express that fully. And like, so what does that mean? But there's like these archetypes, right? Where I think you mentioned like I'm a Blu-ray, and so I'm meant to be like a leader.
Was your archetype leader?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm terrible at
No worries.
You're channeling it, so it's like I never know. So that's fun. So there's two layers to that. So one is when you say Blu-ray, you're referring to like your soul origin. So your soul origin is, in a sense, yes, you can associate that as a purpose in a sense, because it's basically your origin point. You are always going to embody that energy or that purpose, whatever that is. It's always going to be a part of your expression, so for a Blu-ray, because it has that energy through Archangel Michael, because that's, like I said, the angelic realm, soul origin, and there's different color rays, and the Blu-ray is Archangel Michael. So basically, yes, that is a very much a leadership quality. Not only that, but it's connected to the throat chakra. And it does say you are meant to speak your truth. You are meant to sort of call people out on their BS and to be a true speaker. They tend to have a spiritual approach, but they're different from the purple ray in the sense of they have a very much perspective that's like, let's have practical applications. It's like we can study and know and like meditate all day long, but at some point, you're going to have to open your eyes and actually embody the principles, so that is a lot of the energy of the Blu-ray. And also because they are closer to the original fragmentation of source energy, they do tend to have more of a natural knowing of both cosmic laws, patterns, systems, archetypes, but they also are very empathetic and connected to the human side of things too, where it's like, I'm a blueprinter, so I'm really good at the systems and the patterns and connecting the dots. And I know people want to play the game. Like, I need to think that, here is this thing I'm designing. You want it. But anything outside of that, I struggle with the humanness. I'm more comfortable in spirituality. I'm more comfortable in patterns and logic. And so for blueprinters, it's a balance of head and heart is a challenge, bringing us down towards embodiment, where it's a little easier for the Blu-rays. And then what I like to do when you mention archetype is that whenever I'm reading for my clients, I like to kind of look at it as when I'm in the Akashic records, I like having this moment where I'm kind of just like picturing it as I'm like sitting down with your soul and we're having this conversation. I'm like, so what brings you here? You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. And because I love patterns, the archetypes, which we all to some degree are familiar with the archetype, the various archetype expressions. I mean, the tarot is a version of that as well. But there are 12 different archetypes. So I look at this as, okay, why are you here? Like, yes, we can embody all sorts of archetypes while we're here, but really, what inspired you? What character do you want to play? Like, what piece do you want to contribute? And so that usually ends up being like, oh, this is what I want. So that means throughout your entire life, and not all the time is it easy. Not like, for example, I'll use myself. I can be creative all day long. I can embody, I've had creative businesses. I can do the creator thing. And people generally, I don't even have to sell it. Like it just comes natural in everything I've ever done. That said, I'm not here to be the creator. I'm here to be the leader. But I'm like, but can I just create, because that's a lot more comfortable and I don't have to actually stand up, get in front of people, or, embody anything. I'm just like, here's my art. You either want it or you don't. Okay, have a nice day. So it's pushed me out of my comfort zone. It's not always are we at a position in our path when my clients find me that some have said, ooh, I don't know if that resonates. And I'm like, that is a fun journey for you.
That's
Usually
hilarious.
it always comes around and they're like,
Yeah.
by the end of the session, they're like, yeah.
I love that, like, connecting this past life wisdom really grounds kind of like what we're working towards here. And like, as if we have this like overarching purpose, right, that our soul wants for reincarnation, which is to know itself more. Yet,
Right.
how do we do that? How do we become that vessel? And it's really cool because I went into this past life. I had this like quite rigorous training where every day, like for 30 minutes, I would go in and heal a part of myself. I did this for like 6 months. So
Yeah.
one of them that they brought me to, I went to this, it felt like Orion. And I think now looking back, like this was like when I first started, I was like, this was definitely Orion and part of the Orion Wars. But my family was taken from me and I had to go onto this other planet to like find them. And it was like, it felt very like Orion Star Wars-y. And so like my family was actually killed in front of my eyes. And in this lifetime, I always had this fear of like the person I loved would die. And it was like, I never knew why that was like a feeling. I had this like, and it obviously that can manifest as like over codependency, like over like not giving your partner freedom, like scared, being in the fear. And so when I saw that past life, I not only understood like what that was, I did like a little healing in that life. And then I took it a step forward here in this lifetime. Like I can either continue to let that fear, come towards me, which would actually like repel my partners or family to like smother someone with love. But I was like, let me surrender to that. If that's for my highest good, and if like my partner's supposed to pass away before me, I'm gonna like let that, like, just it's not my choice. And I feel like that's a big hard part that like a lot of people fear, like that shadow side that they're like, oh no, like once I see that and I know that that's my truth, I fear that. But it's ironic because as I surrendered to it and I connected more to the divine wisdom, they were like, don't worry, he's actually gonna outlive you. I was like, perfect. Have there been any past lives that have been really impactful for you that correlated like with what you were working through at that moment?
Oh my gosh. Oh, like all of them.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's the one thing of why I love what I do, because it's like not only for myself, but even, my clients, I don't even have a picture or know them or haven't seen them. And I'm just like, okay, I've got all this information about you. Hopefully it hits. And they're like, that's going on right now. And I'm like, every time. So, it's neat because I've come to the conclusion that going back to the archetypes and different things to answer your question, I think that our souls really choose a select few topics that I don't look at as destined or lessons, but I like to look at it as curiosity. It's like if you're like signing up for a project, they're like, oh, I'll take family. Yes, family. And so like every life, family, every 360 view piece of which you can do your homework on the subject of family, and I think we choose like a few topics. So yes, a big one for me is kind of like what we were kind of touching on for the archetypes. And I shared the creator role is easier for me. I had a hard time. I had a spontaneous awakening where overnight all of this just kind of, hello, I'm here. Before then I was raised in a religiously abusive home. I was not a likely candidate. I was not entertaining this stuff, so it was like, oh, okay. Ooh, what are we going to do with this? And so one of the things that is hard for me is feeling comfortable enough to use my intuition, even though I know it's very strong in me, and being seen. And one past life that I have, there was a life that I had in which I won't go into all the details, but basically the theme of the story is I wanted to be in that particular life. Family is also, it is hard for me, like intuition and fitting in. That is some of my soul's themes. Can I be authentic? Can I be this strong intuitive and be accepted over and over, whether it's friends, family, communities, that my life circled that theme. So in this particular life, I wanted to be connected and have this loving, caring, beautiful, nurturing connection with my people. But I lived in fear. And so a lower vibrational race came in and basically convinced to me that, hey, you come help us with our agenda and we'll do XYZ. They would provide some sort of support or care to my people, which I gave into. And ultimately, they ended up using me for psychic warfare. So I would go in and use my gifts in a very manipulative tactic to cause harm to their agenda. And this was all based on fear. So I feel like I have an extremely high, overly protective integrity. I mean, it's ridiculous. I could tell you stories. I get laughed at frequently. I'm definitely the rule follower, but I'm supposed to be the rebel. So you can see the conflict. But I had a friend say, you use the word integrity ridiculously often, and you're never out of integrity. You're overly cautious about how your rituals and patterns of how you read, how you do things. But yet you're so naturally gifted. But that it's this feeling of, can I show up? Is it safe? And I have to be in integrity. But it would be a whole lot easier to be the creative, to not be seen, to not use my intuition, and just have a typical, life where I'm, an artist. I was a floral designer for 10 years before the ship. Everybody knows what a floral designer is. Like, but when you're like, oh, what do you do for a living? Talk to aliens. You know what I mean? So in that past life, in my chart, it ends up, the placement is in Saturn, which notates karma, and the 11th house. And it basically says in my galactic astrology chart that really I'm rebalancing karma. I'm helping the collective, using and being courageous enough to use my intuitive gift versus the harm that was caused when I was living in fear. So that hit big.
It's like so beautiful that you were willing and open to see that, maybe what you would describe on earth here as like the shadow life of yours, and that built this like kind of more negatively polarized karma, and you're here now to go the other way. And what I love about the galactic and cosmic Akashic records and all the things is, I know you also study gene keys and human design. Like, all these modalities are like here to provide you like a roadmap and like guidance to just get to the center of who you are more. And for me, and if you're listening to this is probably likely you, because you are attracted to this episode of the galactic and the cosmic and all. And it's so beautiful that to see these past lives. And I feel like this is a safe space, so I'm just going to go for it. But I had this actually not good life as well. And so for me, I know I'm moving into the heart, and my throat is in this lifetime. That is what I meant to open up and express and embody. And so that leader archetype, right? I've also never felt like I fit in. I never felt like I was the one who felt safe enough to speak her truth, whether it be at home or in any situation, friend groups. And so that's something that I know that I need to work on. And it's like, how did I get there though? Right. So I got these readings, or I went into my own records and understood my past and what I was overcoming. And it got to the point in which I was like, I have to move forward in doing this. I need to step out of my comfort zone. And in that outside of my comfort zone is the unknown, and it's uncomfortable. Yet now I know it's like when I step into that energy and that frequency of the unknown has become my actual safe spot, because I feel like I am in my purpose. And so I had a past life actually where it kind of was like Mad Men vibes, where I've actually never watched the show, but I'm assuming like that 50s, masculine power energy. And I was like, I had this receptionist, and I was like male, representing as male in this lifetime. And I actually like would rape her. And it was this like, my whole body when I went into this past life was like, I felt it that whole day. And I was crying. I was feeling the grief. I was like feeling her energy. And so I had to go in, like at the end of the day, I was like, I need to clear this. Like I want to heal this. And it's so interesting because I really like anything about sex trafficking or anything like of that world. It gets me so much. Like I always wanted to like advocate. I even like I'm on some of these sites that like help advocate for them, because it was like such a thing. And I think now I'm coming to that realization. I think I'm like that healing that karma, or leveling that karma of which I was not like the best version of myself in that soul expression. But now here I'm like, I want to give love to every single person and hold space for every single person and empower everyone else. And whether that be a part, directly from that, or really just a part of my whole mission, most of my lives I feel like that I've seen are, I guess you could say, quote unquote good, but it's seeing all the sides of you and accepting all the sides of you as part of your journey. And I think some of the spirituality work, we're always like, I want to see the good, or there's people who are really scared to see their shadow, so they won't get a reading because they don't want to confront what they really know inside as their truth. But I think it's just the work you're doing is so beautiful.
Thank you. I would love to, if you don't mind, like touch on that too, because I think that I love that you shared that. And I think that I would love to see more people courageously share these things, because I think that we get so caught up in good guys, bad guys, that we lose sight that we are consciousness experiencing itself. And it's like, if you had all one polarity, you wouldn't know the other side, so it's like, and another thing I always like to say is, it's, if you went back, I would be almost positive, like I would bet so much money on it, that if you went back, you probably in another life experienced sexual assault. Because what happens is, when we're looking and considering past life, if someone does something wrong to you, okay, the first thing you're going to do is be upset. Usually the second thing is, I mean, even in the movies, they're like, why, God, why? We want to understand. And that is why we incarnate. Because it's that simple. Because we are consciousness experiencing itself, and we want to understand. So we have been agreed upon, just like in your example, you had a soul agreement with that person. I picture you guys sitting at having some coffee, and you're like, yeah, what do we want to do? I don't know. Like, this thing happened, and, I don't know, but and they're like, oh, well, I had this thing happen and would really like to know why, like, okay, you want to hang out with this? Yeah, sure. Let's do it. And so, because none of us, I know within every fiber of our being, none of us experience anything that we haven't in some, and this is so hard, I think, for people to hear, but none of us have experienced anything that we have not on some level agreed to experience on a soul level. And I think that's where free will really gets the meat of the subject, is because there's a part of us that is putting those things in line. And when something bad happens, we want to understand what's the best way to understand, to go through the experience, to be the other side of it, to walk in that person's shoes. And so I think it's beautiful that you shared that life.
Thank you. And that really resonated when you mentioned that, because not only did we choose that experience, but we have all the capabilities within us to overcome whatever experience
Yes.
we've also chosen. And at
Yes.
times when we get that victim mentality of like, why?
Mhm.
Or you know those shows like I'm just thinking of the Titanic, but you know when the people are like they lose someone or something happens and they're like, I'll give anything, like I'll give up
Yes.
playing Game Boy or I'll give up watching TV or
Yeah.
whatever. And
When
then
you
can you
start negotiating with the higher
yeah.
powers. Yeah.
And I that came to me last week and I was like, what I want people to know is you never have to negotiate anything.
Yeah.
Everything is abundant. It's not
Yes. I
if
love
can
it.
I trade this for this? It's no, and some.
Yes.
Give me more.
Yes.
Like what
Yeah.
is the lesson that I meant to be learning? Have gratitude. Obviously, it's really hard if you lose someone
Yeah.
and you're like to have gratitude for that. But it's like observing the life that they maybe had lived
Yeah.
and having gratitude for your relationship with them, the vows and contracts that you had with them, and then coming back to yourself, having gratitude for how you can overcome that experience, the lesson that you're learning. And something that's really been connecting with me lately is like as humans now in this present dimension, we can't control, right, what's happening, the experiences, but we can control how we react and how we perceive them.
Yeah.
And that is really what I've been focusing on. Obviously I want to understand and I want to know, and this is what all this past life exploration has really uncovered for me. But I'm now moving into that moment of like, okay, I'm so divinely guided. I know no matter what, like this is meant for me.
Yeah.
Now, how do I just like as a human overcome this situation? How can I
Yeah.
react in love and
Right.
positivity and
Mm-hmm.
abundance and attract more of that into my life?
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Yeah. Agree.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If someone doesn't do that healing in the past life, can they still move towards their purpose? And okay, I'm going to think this out loud real quick before I ask you. What I'm getting a sense of is if we're meant for it, it will come into our aura, it will come into our field. And if we are courageous enough to bring that curiosity that you talked about to that desire, that curiosity, that intuitive hit, then we will find our path to it. But what if we don't?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay, great. So
I'm just hitting you with the hard ones.
yeah, no, I love it. I love the rich depth of this. I love it. I love it. So, first off, I do believe that there are, I know what the word lesson is used, but like I said, I like to use those topics of curiosity that we want to explore. Yes, I do feel like, especially after someone, because when we talk about free will, as someone who experiences spontaneous awakening, like I said, I didn't feel like I was like looking for that by no means. It obviously was a destined thing that was meant to happen. So that being said, yes, we have free will, but yes, those topics we cannot avoid. We cannot not heal, move through them. And what's neat is, yes, the past lives do give us more clarity. Sometimes it can make it easier. I think it's not always necessary, but for those that it is, they find the right people. Kind of like it comes into their aura. But if you do not learn the lesson, like for example, if I stuck my foot in the mud and said, you know what? No, I'm going to be the creator. It's working for me. I would get boulder thrown after me after boulder thrown after, and forcing me to constantly revisit the lesson. That's why some people have certain relationships that tend to hold a character frequency that repeat over and over and over, because we have to confront our shadow. We have to confront those things we're meant to heal, evolve, and grow through. And if we don't, it's going to continue to repeat. Yes, do I believe like we come in with a soul plan to say, okay, if things don't go as planned, this is my checkout point. Yes, I do believe that we can reach a point, and when we leave this world, that we don't complete everything that we set out on a soul level to complete, because I do feel like there is a little bit of a level there of free will, but I think that you can't escape it. So if we flow, so my tattoo I got, you probably can't see it. Wu Wei is, so I love Wu Wei. And it's a Chinese saying that basically is all about the like action of inaction. So it's like, Abraham Hicks is another one that talks like this. It's like when you're in your raft and you're going down the river, yes, that river is flowing where your soul predestined for that river to flow. Could you choose to stand up and put your feet in the mud and say, I'm not going where the river wants me to go, until you exhaust yourself and ultimately want to check out? Yes. But it's going to be the harder path to choose. It's easier to sit in the raft and say, okay, I'm comfortable with what's behind me. I saw that. The front, where I'm going, I have no clue. It's unknown. Like, I don't know what I would look like or feel like as that archetype or that energy, that scares me and makes me quake, but you either flow forward or you try to go against the stream backwards and exhaust yourself. So yes, I think that the healing is destined. There is some free will, but I also, to your point, feel like there's no wrong moment. You can only be where you are right now in this moment. And if you choose that harder path, that's still okay. That's what you wanted to experience, and that's bringing its own lessons to you until you just get sick of that same person that keeps coming into your life and you're like, no more. And then you learn and move on.
I think you said that absolutely beautifully, and I think everyone needs to hear that. You are exactly where you're meant to be in this moment. And if you have any question about your path, place the intention. Hey, spirit guides, can you please get me on my right path and show me the cycles? Bring it to my attention and connect to your heart. Yes. Those two, I think, would be that intention and that heart. That heart would be it's so wonderful. And honestly, if you're even questioning that right now, you likely are on your right path. You are, because you have done the work and you're like, so divinely guided and all the beautiful things. And you mentioned something about spontaneous
awakening.
I'm assuming can you go into, is that like when you just download everything at once?
Or? No, that meant I was not on a spiritual path, knew absolutely nothing about any of it, was fearful of raised like fundamentalist Pentecostal. So like rapture, post-traumatic syndrome is a thing where it's like you wake up and you're just like, wasn't good enough. I missed the boat. Like, there was all of that. There was no entertaining astrology, the devil's work, tarot. Oh my gosh. I would be determined to be possessed by the first card. We didn't even believe in dinosaurs because they were a ploy of the devil to confuse us because they weren't in the Bible. So there was no entertaining any of this. Then I ended up experiencing an overnight awakening that took place during a solar eclipse that had a significant placement in my astrology chart. So I'm told, I know I'm not the only one. There are people out there who have had similar experiences. It's not as common. Most of the time they say like a death in the family or something tragic will spark. But it was like I went to bed, I went to bed and woke up a total different person. The people were like, your inner, I did have a spiritual friend, didn't buy any of it. We didn't relate to that at all. And I would even joke with my husband, she needs a friend she can meditate with. Like, what is that? Like, isn't that crazy? You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't buying any of it. But yeah, the next day she was like, who are you and what did you do with Cassandra? She's like, your energy is different. I could carry on conversations about spiritual topics and astrology like I've been studying it for years. And it just like rocketed from there. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And how long have you been doing this now?
So next June will be 4 years. So 3.5 years since, yeah, I was certified in human design, which is a pretty complex system, and had the entire, like all of the gates of the I Ching memorized and could understand their energy perfectly within like a year after my awakening. Like it was like, it's time. I joke that I must be a procrastinator because my soul was like, yeah, we're good. And then finally it's like, all right, I guess we got to fold the laundry. Bam. And just like, it's go time. Like, all right, I am an Aries. So
Oh my gosh, no wonder. I'm a fire sign too, Leo. I love other
I love
fire
it.
signs. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing and inspiring. Well, Cassandra, what are you offering right now and where can people find you?
Yeah, so it's funny because I actually have one of those crazy aha moments since even you and I spoke and revamped my entire site. So yeah, they can find me on my site is just my name, CassandraDeanne.com. Instagram, I am CassandraDeanne.com. And I'm excited about a 6-week course that I'm launching that is designed to really dive into understanding really the topics we're talking, because a lot of times I think people think of like the star seeds or the alien races and think, oh, that's just like sci-fi fun. And I'm like, no, when you understand your heritage, you can see, like we're talking about why things are playing out now the way they are. And also understanding that as you are curious of these things, it drastically shifts who you are as a person. Like it just does. Your energy frequency changes, how you behave changes, your relationships. I mean, it's just beautiful. So it's designed to be a supportive group program that I can kind of, channel guidance and really hold people's hands through that process. So, yeah.
That is so wonderful. I'm going to leave everything in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
And is there any last tidbits that you feel like maybe someone needs to hear right now about
Oh.
all of this?
Oh, goodness. I love that. Okay. So, I've never really been a person that subscribed to much attention to the things are changing, get ready. But I feel like there has definitely been a shift just because I'm in the, like I said, I like the patterns and the observations. And what I'm observing is a lot of people are going through rapid energetic frequency upgrades. And if we really want to get woo woo here, the reason why is because the more we are getting closer to contact and things of that nature, you have to be able to actually be capable of being around that frequency. So when there is a contrast in frequency, that's when you have physical symptoms like disorientation or nausea or intense vibration that you have difficulty grounding. And so I'm noticing a lot of higher frequency people are getting very activated and really being pushed to step into their fullest expression of doing things for the sake of joy and love, because that is the best frequency to increase the vibration of the planet. So it sounds silly to say, do what you love, yay, peace, happiness. But really, there's a reason why, because that is like the Shakti energy. That is the life force energy. You're tapping into, when you tap into that joy and that creativity, and the heart expression, you're just vibrating at a higher frequency. And that's when the magic happens.
It is magical. I really think it is. And it's so funny you say that because literally this morning I had a client and she was like, "Why am I not like excelling in my business? What's happening?" And she's going through a divorce and I was like, "You need to move here to like be in your joy. And when you're in your joy, you're going to be successful." And it
Yeah.
was like it landed on her and she was like crying. It was so sweet, but it was just like it can be as simple as
Yep.
that. Yet we sometimes often like grow the complexity of like what is,
Yes. Yes.
such a
Yes.
beautiful message.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Yay!
Cassandra.
I
Thank
love
you. Like,
this.
yes, this was such a wonderful episode. I really appreciate you. And I hope everyone just has a beautiful, wonderful day. Sending everyone oceans of love.
Mm.
Bye.